Hello, and welcome to the American Experiment, Conversations from the Jack Miller Center on Politics, Principles, and Education. I'm your host. I'm John Agresto, member of the Jack Miller Center Board, author, longtime professor of American history and politics, and retired president of St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Today, we're going to have a conversation with our very own Jack Miller, the founder of the Jack Miller Center. Let me tell you a little bit about him first. Jack's the founder and former president and CEO of Quill Corporation. It's a company he started in 1956 in the back of his father's poultry shop. Over 40 years, it grew into America's largest independent direct marketer of office products, employing over 1,300 people, and with annual sales exceeding $630 million before he and his brother sold the business to Staples back in 1998. In 2004, Jack founded the Jack Miller Center, the Jack Miller Center for the Teaching of America's Founding Principles and History. And he also serves as the chairman of the board, the very same board I joined in 2016. The center now has a network of nearly 1,000 college professors on more than 300 campuses around the country, graduate programs and seminars for middle and high school teachers, and is working to make a difference throughout our educational system. So without further ado, let's start our conversation. Welcome, Jack.
Well, thank you, John. I'm glad to be here, and so very happy to share my thoughts on what's going on in the educational system and what we can do to improve it.
Jack, let me ask sort of a comprehensive question. I know you go to the seminars that the center puts on, you go to the conferences, you go to the meetings, you've talked to professors, you've talked to high school teachers, probably you've talked to high school students and college students as well. What, from all you've done and seen, let me ask a question. What should every American student know to be a good American?
Well, yeah, I've gone to all of these conferences. I've heard an awful lot of professors speak, which is sort of difficult to understand. It's an inside language. And a lot of the professors focus on more and more detail. But in general, what I've learned, number one, most importantly, is that our vision for our country is in our Declaration of Independence, that second paragraph. It starts out, all men are created equal. We're all equal. And from that first concept comes the idea that therefore, since we're all equal, we are each entitled and endowed with our unalienable rights, the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to the pursuit of happiness. All Americans, all young kids should get an even playing field at the starting line. And then it's up to them.
The thing about the Declaration that always interested me was, and I know there are people who think that, you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants and we, you know, we're part of the broad, wonderful sweep of Western civilization. But the truth is, America is different than everything that went before. No other place ever said before, all men are created equal. Other places said, divine right of kings, or other places said, listen to your religious leaders and do whatever they say. Other places said, keep to your station in life and don't try to get out of your place in the world. And we said, you know, a man who was born in a log cabin, or as I once heard, a log cabin he built with his own hands, can rise on the basis of the Declaration of Independence to be president. If he could do it, any man of good sense and goodwill can at least make the attempt. Or as Adlai Stevenson said, that's the risk he takes to be president. The reason I'm pushing us to talk a little bit about the Declaration is not because it's the same not because it's the culmination of other things, but really it was a totally new start for the world. I mean, when Abraham Lincoln called this the last best hope of Earth, he meant best, as well as if we fail, everybody fails. And so I think that's the reason why what you're doing is so important, so absolutely important.
I think this country is great. I love this country. And so that's why I started it.
You decided to make civic education your life's interest. Why?
You know, I grew up, I was in high school during the Second World War. Patriotism was in the air. I mean, every place you turned, we were saving tinfoil from gum wrappers, from cigarette wrappers. Every day in school, we had a flag in every schoolroom. We pledged allegiance to the flag. We would go to the movies on Saturday afternoons, and we'd see the newsreels of the war that was going on. We'd listen to Walter Winchell on Sunday nights. Everybody gathered around the radio. I mean, it was just something that was there. It was in the air. And now, you know, it feels and it felt to me that something was wrong, something was changing. And they weren't teaching this civics in school anymore, and they were teaching history, celebrating our failures, not celebrating our successes in achieving what we wanted to achieve.
You're up against an incredible set of obstacles. You're up against misunderstandings, willful sometimes misunderstandings. You're up against indoctrination. I mean, the very thought that someone could say America was founded in order to protect slavery. That's remarkably ignorant, I have to tell you. But to say this country was founded for all the things the Declaration says, even if it was a down payment on what we had to do later, it still was founded for those reasons. I hope we succeed in this, Jack. And you know, I'm with you in all this, but it's a struggle we're going to have.
Those who believe that America is a good country, they believe in what our country is. They've been sitting in the bleachers bitching about it. And now it's time for us to put a team on the field. Okay, and that's what we're doing. So it's going to be tough, sure, but so what? You know, I started a business with $2,000 I borrowed from my father-in-law with a phone in my dad's chicken store. And I'm not a genius. All I did was went out and I started knocking on doors, and my first mailing was a penny postal card with 5 items on sale. You know, and it went to 150 people that I ended up mailing to about about 3 or 4 million people a month at the end. But it wasn't genius. I'm not that smart. It's just 43 years of hard work, putting one foot in front of another. And I think that the country right now is ready for what we are talking about.
Given what the general view of college professors are, why did you begin thinking that college professors would be the vehicle for teaching civics? What was going through your mind?
Well, you know, if you think about it, a lot of movements, a lot of things start on the college campuses, and then they find their way into the high schools or into the general public, etc. So it was pretty obvious that that's where it should start. And so we called together about 50 professors from around the country, told them what we wanted to do. And there was gloom and doom in the room. It can't be done. The other professors won't allow it, and so on and so forth. But after about a day and a half of talking back and forth with lots of big pieces of paper taped to the walls, etc., we came up with a pretty good idea of a strategy going forward, and we put it into action. I didn't realize at that time, quite frankly, how far away the high schools had drifted from teaching the civics and teaching founding principles and history. But as I got involved more and more, I began to realize how far away they had drifted.
Okay. I mean, I got to tell you, Jack, when I first heard, and I was on the board, that the center was going to start on civic education in the schools, high schools and so on, I said, doomed to failure. And I'm wrong. I was wrong then, I'm wrong now. But what I saw then was civic education in the schools always seemed to be not education, but civic activism. You know, what I call protest for credit. You saw that could be turned around, that wasn't the whole story. What made you see what you saw that I couldn't see?
Well, what I saw was a lot of teachers. We don't go through the administrators. We don't go that route. We don't talk to the unions. We go to the teachers and we offer programs to the teachers. A lot of the teachers do like America, do like our founding principles. They do want to teach them. And so when we tested this in Chicago, we saw a tremendous amount of enthusiasm from the teachers. And so that's what convinced me that we should go more national with this. And I truly believe that a lot of people in this country really believe that the teaching of our founding principles is critical.
So let me get this straight. What the professors are doing is introducing, or one hopes reintroducing, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, to high school teachers, middle school teachers even, to have them sort of talk to and with their class about these foundational documents. Do I have that right?
Yes, absolutely. What started out as just getting more professors has turned into the idea that our professors can run the classes for the high school teachers. And they're doing a good job of that. And we want to introduce the documents, the original documents. We don't want somebody's interpretation of it. We don't want somebody's opinion of it. But we want for the kids to read the documents, our founding documents, our Federalist Papers, even John Locke, some of the philosophers that are the base of our founding. We want them to see an honest history of the United States so that they could see that, the promise in our Declaration is one thing. We haven't fully realized it, but we're more and more achieving that vision. And we want them to understand that. We think our kids are smart enough, if they can just read the original documents, if they can understand what our founders were trying to do, they're smart enough to make a choice between what they had heard otherwise and what they're seeing and reading and hearing now.
Now, but American history, Jack, is more than just documents. I imagine you're teaching history as well. How are you doing that? How is it going? What are you getting out of it?
What am I getting out of it?
No, what are they getting out of it that makes you happy and smile like that?
Well, number one, there's a new book out, Bill McClay's book, Land of Hope. Mm-hmm. Which is a wonderful new history book, and we're trying to get it approved in every state to become a textbook for high school students. And it tells the story of America in a wonderful way, warts and all. It talks about slavery, it talks about our attempts to get rid of it, even before the Civil War. It gives the full picture, but it makes people realize that we start out with that vision in our Declaration that all men are created equal and therefore are entitled to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that's a vision that we're trying to achieve. We haven't fully achieved it yet, but we've made a lot of progress, and we should be proud of the progress we made. We shouldn't just look at the failures that we've had and say, oh, we're a bad country. We're not a bad country. We're a great country. And we've made a lot of progress. We need to make more progress, but we have made progress. And so teaching the history of America, the kids should begin to understand how much progress we've made and how far we've come.
I still have a little bit of my worries that that there are too many forces out there who have, let's say, disrespect for America's founding principles.
I've begun to think that the idea is that we should first see what we agree on. Left, right, center, whatever. Do we agree that each of us as individuals should be able to pursue our own lives? But I think we should be able to agree that we all want the freedom to live our lives as we want to. That we shouldn't have some tyrant over us telling us what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what kind of a job we should have, what kind of a marriage we should have if we get married, whatever. So we start out with that idea that we agree on that. We agree that we're entitled to our life, that no one should be able to just come in and pop us off and we're gone, that we're entitled to our liberty. So we agree on those things. So then we can discuss how we can best achieve that. Now, our founders set up a form of government that was designed and so far has proven the best in the world. It may not be perfect, but it's been proven the best of the world to achieve those objectives. They set out the Constitution really as a document that sets out the rules of the road, so to speak, on what you can and can't do, how you should do things in order to preserve that liberty. And the founders were very smart in what they did. They didn't want the central government to be able to become a tyrant.
I think kids have a real interest in these matters, and we shouldn't sell them short. I don't think we should preach to them, because that they turn off. And that's always been the problem with American history, right? All kinds of history. Kids say, oh, it's so boring. I would write down what he says and I got to say it back. But if you can engage them, you know, how does government protect our rights? How do you see it? What do you know? How can it fail at protecting our rights? How do you see it? What do you know? It could be an amazingly lively understanding. But I'm getting us off the topic. One last thing I think we should talk about, Jack. What does the future hold for the Jack Miller Center?
Well, number one, I think the future is great. I've never seen a time when there's so many people in the country that are so interested in this subject. So I think the future is going to be great. I think that the high school initiative is going to be a big plus for the Jack Miller Center, because it's going to make everybody understand what the Jack Miller Center is. It's going to put it front and center in front of a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And we also are reaching out in the process to many, many people, donors as well as the states themselves, the governors, other people. So I see the Jack Miller Center becoming a much, much bigger player in this whole arena. And I see a lot of collaboration in the future. I think that we have to collaborate. Those organizations that are doing things on the ground should collaborate with one another. Some of them could provide communication skills. Some of them could provide the actual teaching. They can do a lot. So collaboration is going to be very important. I think also going back to the Jack Miller Center, I think that we're going to be developing more solid programs on a lot of universities where we already are. So those professors are going to be key to everything that we're doing. But going back to the collaboration, not only should the people who are doing the work be collaborating, but the donors should start to collaborate. A lot of people want to give for education. They want to give for civic education. They just don't know where to give. They don't know who's doing what. And so part of what we're doing will be to help try and guide, or at least to give the donors an opportunity to see what's happening and where they can most effectively put their money. I think that's critical.
This has been a lovely conversation, Jack. I think what I'd like to say what we're doing, but most have to say what you're doing, is vital for the future of this country. When we talk about a lot of history, I want to talk about the future. I think what you're doing is making the future and making it right. So thank you, Jack, and thank all of you who've been watching and listening.
Thank you, John.